Hi, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I thought it would be fun to do another small tag, and I saw Ray from Bookmark Chronicles do this tag maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And that is the Why Haven't I Read This Yet? Book tag. I will also link the original creator, Another Bibliophile Reads, I believe is his name, in the description down below as well. So make sure you check them both out. Without further ado, let's get into the questions. So the first book is a classic. Now, I don't read a lot of classics. However, I absolutely love 2005 Pride and Prejudice, the movie. And I really want to try reading the book as well. I also really want to read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, because we know Miss Mary Shelley putting in the work to help pioneer the genre. So I really want to read Pride and Prejudice and Frankenstein. I haven't gotten to them yet because I'm not a classic reader, and the writing of classics sometimes is really dense, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not always the brightest bulb in the box. So I really have to work hard when I read a classic to pay attention and understand the meaning of the phrasing and such. So they're definitely just a little intimidating for me. So that's why I haven't read those books yet. The second kind of book is a fiction book, and I'm gonna go with The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I don't know why I haven't read this yet. On paper, this should be like a 5-star for me. I have it in my 5-star predictions video. I think I'm gonna love it, but I don't know, I keep putting it off. I don't know why I'm so scared to read it. I think because it is so beloved by the people who have read it that I'm just like kind of scared, because what if I don't love it and then I'm just like the black sheep and everyone's like, boo, shame on you, you didn't like it. Even just from the very little information we are given on the back, it sounds incredible. The Thorn of Camor is said to be an unbeatable swordsman, a master thief, a friend to the poor, a ghost that walks through walls. Slightly built and barely competent with a sword, Locke Lamora is, much to his annoyance, the fabled Thorn. And while Locke does indeed steal from the rich, who else would be worth stealing from? The poor never see a penny. All of Locke's gains are strictly for himself and his tight-knit band of thieves, the gentleman bastards. The capricious, colorful underworld of the ancient city of Camor is the only home they've ever known. But now, a clandestine war is threatening to tear it apart. Caught up in a murderous game, Locke and his friends are suddenly struggling just to stay alive. Like, that sounds incredible. Why haven't I read it yet? That's a great question, actually. Why haven't I read it yet? I put it on my 5-star predictions list earlier this year in May, and I only put 5 books on that list, and I would love to get to all 5 of those by the end of the year, but we'll see. I do have some really chunky books on there. I don't know if that's possible, but I need to make sure this is one of them, because again, I don't know why I've put it off for so long. It sounds great. And they also just got new covers, which I kind of love. This like old classic, like fantasy, the classic fantasy art vibe of the cover, but I can't lie, the new cover is really beautiful. So if I read this and love it, I don't have the other 2 yet, so I might buy the new versions instead of continuing with this cover. Next is Why Haven't You Read This Nonfiction book? I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I kind of think nonfiction in general, for me personally, for my tastes, it just doesn't hold my attention. I did, however, recently read I'm Glad That My Mom Died. I read that earlier this year, and I really was I don't want to say intrigued, because it was very like harrowing to listen to, but I was very like immersed, and I thought it was easy to listen to, and it kept my attention, and I think it was like very well written and sad to read. And I think that possibly memoirs might be the way to go for me, because memoirs do have a somewhat like linear story to them, even though it's about a real person. They usually tend to tell them in a linear fashion, so that might be the way to go for me. So I do want to say, actually, Michelle Obama, her memoir, I would love to read that. There is another nonfiction book that I have always been mildly intrigued by, and that is When Breath Becomes Air. And I believe that this is the story of a doctor who talks about his battle and journey of stage 4 lung cancer, and I think it's about like how it affected his life in general, but also because he was a doctor, like how it affected his job. And that one does also mildly intrigue me. So I think for this question, those are the 2 most likely that I would want to read out of nonfiction. And again, the reason why I haven't read them is because nonfiction is not an area of literature that I am drawn to. I do very rarely get the urge to pick up a nonfiction. So when I have that urge, these two will be on deck for sure. The next question is, why haven't you read this genre book? And for this question, I'm gonna go with sci-fi and say To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I won this in a giveaway, you guys. I won this in a giveaway, like literally when it first came out, and it's signed. I won it in a giveaway, and part of the giveaway was that you actually got to join this Zoom interview between Christopher Paolini and this other woman. I can't remember who she was at the moment, but she was this interviewer, and I think it was for a specific bookstore. Where did I get this from? Does it say on the book plate? Doylestown. It was the Doylestown bookshop, and they were doing a giveaway online, and you got to go to an interview on Zoom with Christopher Paolini and one of the employees from Doylestown bookshop. So she was interviewing him about the book, the upcoming release, and I think, you know, probably asked him a few questions about Aragon as well. And you got to join and be like an audience member to the Zoom call and ask questions and, you know, like talk to him directly in the chat. There was only like 30 people. And it was such a wild and great experience, and I will never forget it. It was really interesting to get kind of a sneak peek at his mind and get a really like up close and personal experience of seeing this interview in real time, like as it's happening, and getting to be a part of it and ask questions. And yet I haven't read the book yet. I think I'm just kind of intimidated by it. Love sci-fi in movies and video games, and so I also love sci-fi in books. I am a huge fan of the Locked Tomb trilogy. I've read like the Illuminae Files. I've read Winter's Orbit, and you know, like SFF books are kind of like my niche, kind of like my comfort zone. And you know, sci-fi and fantasy are so similar in that aspect, but I don't know, it's just really huge. It's like 873 pages, and I don't know, I'm just kind of intimidated by it, but I'm making it a priority to read this within like the next 6 months because it's long overdue. I need to get to it. I cannot believe that I have a signed book plate edition and that I got to go to that interview, that like private online interview, and I didn't read the book yet. Like, shame on me, actually, though. That's really like despicable behavior on my part. I'm so sorry. And I'm so grateful for the experience, and I'm so grateful that I won and that I got to be a part of that. I really am. And now I just have to read the book. Yeah. That one's my bad. I take full responsibility. I'm just a little intimidated by it because it's so big, and you know, as much as I love science fiction fantasy, I'm mostly a fantasy reader, so sometimes science fiction does scare me a little bit, and that's entirely my fault. And the last question is, why haven't you read the book that's been on your TBR the longest? So recently I did start trying to read the oldest book on my TBR. I started with The Demon King by Cinda Williams-Chama because that was the oldest book that had been on my TBR. I DNF'd it at 20 pages. I've talked about it recently, so if you haven't seen it, I'll link the video where I chatted about it in the cards and down below. And yeah, so it gave me the ick. I DNF'd it, so then I started to read The Queens of Innisleer, which is my second oldest book on my TBR. So for this question, I'm gonna go with the now oldest book on my TBR because those two, obviously I've DNF'd one and I'm unhauling it, and then I'm currently reading the other one. So the actual unread oldest book on my TBR is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. Now, I bought this in 2018, I think it was, or maybe like late 2017, early 2018, and I bought this at a time where I was like really just discovering like a crap ton of booktubers. I think I started following Elliot Brooks, who talked about this book and loving this book. She made it sound so interesting, and I do still really want to read it, and that's why I haven't unhauled it in all these years. I've kept it on my shelf because it does still intrigue me. And I want to say that the only reason I haven't read it is because I bought it at a time when I was buying like way too many books. I was definitely getting influenced by all of the influx of booktubers that I was kind of saturating myself with at the time. And yeah, so I either bought it in very late 2017 or early 2018. And I think that at the time, my husband, when we were just dating, my husband had just bought this house that we're living in now, and so I know that I had a lot of books on my shelf at that time that I hadn't read yet. I know that we were in the process of moving in the beginning of that year, and then very shortly after that I got pregnant, and over the years like I've just never reached for this. However, I have a video planned where I will be reading this book by the end of the year. So I haven't read it yet. And the reason for that is, again, like I said, I was just buying way too many books at that time. And so as I've whittled my TBR down over the last few years, I only have about 45 physical unread books. Actually, it's probably down to 42 now. I only have about 42 unread books. And I really want to try to keep my TBR, my physical TBR, around 30 unread books. I do really still want to buy like new releases and read new releases and support new authors and debut authors and, you know, keep buying books from authors that I love, but I just need to be more selective with books that I'm reading for the first time. Like if it's not something I know I'm gonna love, I need to go to the library, read it there first. If I love it, I can buy it. You know, I don't have to buy it right away. It's still supporting the author to read it from the library. And so I've been really working hard this year and late last year on reading what I own and going to the library for books that I want to read that I don't own yet. And then only buying them if it's something I'm giving like 4 or 5 stars, if I'm really, really loving it. So this has come from a time in my life when I was just buying every single fantasy book that got recommended to me because I was so excited about reading that I just kind of overwhelmed myself with options and quantity of books. So that's why I haven't read this book yet. But like I said, there will be a video soon and I will read this book by the end of the year. If I don't, feel free to tag me in my own comments and be like, hey bitch, you lied. And the last part of this video is to tag other creators to do it too. I would like to specifically tag Penny from Penelope the Paperback Cat. And also if you see this and you want to do this tag, I'm just gonna give my open tag to all of you. If you've made it to the end of the video and you don't know what to say, but you want to say something, leave the little plant emoji in the comments down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!